Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the session 3 of our intermediate Python bootcamp. Thanks for joining us. I hope that everyone was able to create the test for the smart contract. And today we are going to improve the front end to display all the listings, because in the beginner bootcamp, we create a basic example, and over there, we have certain things that we cannot do. But during this bootcamp, Giorgio add more functionalities, so we need to modify our front end. We are already expert in creating and testing smart contracts on Algorand using Python. But now we need to modify a few the user interface of our DApp. Please let us know on the chat if you are ready for the session 3. I see a lot of people. Hi, everyone. How are you doing, guys? Are you ready for today's session? And the important thing, the important question is, who is ready to claim the certificate of completion? But for that, you need to join us on tomorrow's session, because over there we are going to share the link so you can claim the certificate. This is a verifiable credential that you can add to your LinkedIn profile. But the most important thing is to be able to understand. And if you have any question, feel free to ask us, because here we have a Giorgio. He have spent a lot of time preparing the content, and he is willing to answer all the questions that maybe we will have it. So we are ready, Giorgio. The stage is yours. And don't forget to share screenshots of the sessions on your social and tag us. Anything else that you want to add before we start, Giorgio?
No, it's just I'm really excited for today's session, and because we are finally going to see some pretty UI interface, which is pretty exciting because that's what the users will see, right? We stare a lot of the time code, and now we get to the fun stuff as well. Just I would have liked to be able to dedicate more time to the front end. So the result will be a little bit rough, and it needs some love from you, the end user of this course. But the important thing that I think we are going to nail today is the really important interaction with the TypeScript client, and how to set up the front-end project, and how to be able to efficiently read and write data to the blockchain. And that is the important part. The user experience, I'm not the best person to tell you about it, because but with that out of the way, I would say let's get started.
And yeah, over there is where we need more support from our community, because as we discussed the last week, we are super good creating things that works, but we need to offer our user a beautiful interface so they can interact with our application. Today, Joe cannot join us, but he is always in our hearts. So we want to achieve our mission to become algo devs. And today I'm here with Giorgio and with all the community ready to learn and to take advantage of Python for blockchain. So, okay, Giorgio, we are ready. I know, George, as long it works, that is the most important thing in this stage. Okay, Giorgio, we are ready for the first video.
Welcome back, everyone. This recording starts in an unusual way. I'm traveling and I don't have my usual setup of my big monitor and my microphone. I'm recording this video from my from my laptop, sorry. And so I hope that you can still hear and see me well for today's session. Okay, so today we are taking a look at the front end for our contract. But I thought that before we start coding, I would like to show you the end result of what we were going to be doing, and like I'd give you a demonstration of how the front end works, because I think that will justify a lot of the code that we are going to write. So I believe that we have already seen the front end for the beginner bootcamp, and so we should have already that in mind as a context, because what we will do is we will modify the front end for the beginner bootcamp, and we will not write a new one from scratch. So we have already seen a demonstration of the beginner bootcamp front end, but if any of you would like to have a demonstration today, please raise your hand and we'll pause this recording and do a live demo of the beginner front end. So I think without further ado, let's jump to a full screen view, because I am currently in the finished code for the bootcamp. This is the code that or like something very, very similar to what you will see published at the end of the bootcamp. And for context, I already have Docker and the local net started. So let's confirm that quickly with algokit local net status. No, it's not a word. Status is a word. Perfect. Okay, so I'm running local net. We will need, at the very least, we will need the wallet, and we will need to deploy the contract from the front end. So that's why we need the local net for a front end. So I think let's just point to the page right here. The only thing that I have only started the front end with npm run dev, but this is just a demonstration for the moment. You guys do not need to do this. I'm only showing you the end result. So we're going to have something very similar to the beginner bootcamp, and it's not showing me a button to create the applications. Therefore, I think, yeah, that's right. I have to log in with a wallet. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm logged in, and the application ID is equal to 0, which means that we do not have an application. We're not pointing to an application. I should have some previous deployment on localnet, but let's just start from scratch and show you how the application works. So let's create the digital marketplace. Okay, perfect. We're still logged in as the creator of the contract. And in this case, we'll also create listings as the creator of the contract. This section of the form here, this is to create a new listing, a new sale. And the way that this works is that it creates a new asset, and then it registers it to the contract and puts it up for sale. I did this because otherwise it's complicated to have rotating accounts, rotating asset IDs, and this way is just for demonstration, and we will be able to just create a new asset ID each time and put it up for sale. I'm saying this because if you notice, this interface does not include an asset ID field, which means the reason that it's not there is because we are creating it. Okay, so amount to sell. Now, this will be an asset with 3 decimal places, so we should keep that in mind. And it's going to create 10 units of that asset, so we can sell up to that amount. Let's sell 3.5 units. We'll write this as 3,500. Selling price, this is a price in micro algos, so this should perhaps be let's do 7.1 microalgos, sell new asset. Okay, perfect. And you can see here the next section of this form. This is going to tell you all the listings in the contract. In this case, this is a new contract. We have only just created the asset. So you can see that the asset ID is 1162 and the amount doesn't look right though. Well, we'll review the code, but maybe there's a bug here, but this is for sure like one of the listing, and the price is correct. So it's 7.1 algos per unit of the asset. Okay, let's try to buy something. And so if we recall, a sale is defined by the seller, the asset ID, and the nonce. So the nonce is always going to be 0 because each time we sell something, it's a new asset, so we don't need to change the nonce ever. For this demonstration, in production, you will want to do that. The asset to buy is going to be 1162, and the seller, we can copy the address from here. Great. Asset to buy, it's 1162. Nonce is 0. Price per unit, 7.1 algos. Desired quantity, I would like to buy. Is that right? What if I do 1 unit, 2 units? Is that right? No, it looks right. Okay, perfect. There's definitely something strange going on with the listings, and now we're showing 2 just because the update doesn't work correctly when the same listing is updated. But if we refresh the page and we keep a note of the application ID, we will be able to see the correct updated listing. Yeah, so we bought 2 units of that. There's definitely something wrong going on in the way that the assets are represented, but I'll have it fixed for you by the next recording, so don't worry about that. Anyhow, this should give you a demonstration of how the application is going to work, and I'll see you in the next recording. Okay, so we're back with the next recording, and I checked, and there was in fact something wrong with the front end, the demonstration that I showed you. There was a problem with updating the listings and reading them from the contract, and there was a problem about creating a new asset, like how many units and how many decimals, but it's fixed. So we can start this next video by reviewing that we have the front end already initialized, but this is an empty template for the moment. And what we want to do is bring over the files from the beginner bootcamp. So if you have that project open, let me see. Yeah, this is this window for me. Let me organize them in tiles. Okay, so just to be clear, on the left hand side of the screen, I'm writing the our version, like the new intermediate version, and on the right hand side, I have the beginner version. So what we want to bring over is for sure the methods file. Copy. Ah, no, that's not the right folder. It's inside source and paste. And then I think we want to check the main file. No, the main file, I think. Yeah, that's exactly the same. So it's in the app, perhaps. No, I don't think that's it. The home file. Yes, this is the home file that was modified in the beginner bootcamp. So we want to copy this as well and overwrite. And we should have also one more component, this method called component. Let's copy that into the components. Reduce the beginner, and now we can focus on the one that we are writing right now. Okay, so what we're looking for is confirming that at least our project is here. Okay, so let me show you, first of all, let me show you a useful command that we can use. So remember, in order to do this, what I'm about to show you, the project, the contract project needs to be built. So I think that we want to do an AlgoKit project run build specifically for the project name, and it's Python intermediate digital marketplace contracts. We just want to make sure that the contracts are built to the latest code before doing this. Okay. What we want to do is we want to step into the front-end project and then AlgoKit project link. And we select the contract project that we would like to link to the front end. Now, what this command will do is it will generate TypeScript client code, and it will automatically populate this contracts folder. So, by the way, this is something that AlgoKit can do for you, because if we take a look at the contracts project, in the artifacts, we have a Python client. So AlgoKit is able to generate clients in both languages for you. And if you wanted, if you had like some kind of backend written in TypeScript, you would also be able to use this client for that. Okay. So we notice some errors right from the start. Like for example, we don't have a get global state on this new digital marketplace client. The reason is very simple, and is that we don't actually use any state in the contract. Let's open it up. We don't have any state we didn't declare any. If we take a look at the definition for the contract, we will notice that the state does not include anything because we use boxes for this contract. So the client does not generate the get global state method for us. That's not a problem because we are going to eventually get rid of this code in use effect anyway. But I think, yeah, I think now that we ported the files over, and I think let's pause this recording and start with the next one. Okay, let's start coding. And I mentioned that we wouldn't be using use effect anymore to update the listings. So yeah, I think let's start there actually. And I tried doing more than one thing with this use effect, and this is also the bug that you were seeing earlier on showing the listings. At the risk of making this a little bit more complicated, but I'm going to bring in a package that I encourage you to try in your React apps and that I have always find very, very useful and really solid package to use. And that's tanstack query, if you know about it. Let me grab the command to install it and we'll uh, go from there. Okay, here we are. So I use npm, so that's the command that I'm going to use. Let me copy that. If you use something else, of course, use the other variants of the command. And let's go back to the code. Paste. I'm gonna pause and resume it when it's done. Okay. So without going too much into the detail, tanstack query, what it allows you to do is it allows you to
Sorry to interrupt everyone. I'm actually thinking that it would be good if we give a couple of seconds to the people following the video to install the package, because I know that can take a while. So I want people to be able to follow the video. So maybe in this couple of seconds that we have, are there any questions about what we're doing? Okay, I think let's just resume.
Yeah, so far we don't have any questions, but maybe after today's session, when the people try to replicate the things that you are showing us, Giorgio, we will have any question and you can ask on Discord.
Awesome.
delegate when to run some state update, where to store the state, what is that state dependent on, and overall it makes it much, much nicer. So I think, is there anything that we need to say from this function? So what is this doing? This is, let's see. Yeah, right. No, we don't need this because this is assuming that there is only one cell and it is saved in the global state. What is this doing? Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We will not be using this because we will just copy manually the address of the seller when we need to refer to a specific listing or sale. So This is very important, and this is telling us that each time app ID changes, this is going to change. This is something that we will want to keep in mind now that we delegate this state update to tanstack query. So I think let's so we will not be needing asset and set asset ID, but we will worry about that later. For now, let's do a let's set up tanstack query, and actually let's go over to the documentation because I want to show you what you need to do to set this up. Okay, the important bit is this. So before we start using it, we want to wrap our application in this wrapper query client provider. So that's what we're going to do. We should go over to front end and home, perhaps. No, home is where we are right now. Yeah, app could work. What is main? Yeah, this is seem strictly related to React, so that's where we're going to do. We're going to wrap the home within a query client provider. We need to use a client which we didn't instantiate already, but let's call it query client. Nope, just query client. I hate it when my IDE does that. So query client. Okay, let's correctly wrap this. I need to space it this way and space this way. Okay, what we need is a query client that's equal to use query client. This is a new use query client. Is that right? I think so. So client query client and query client, it's new query client. Okay, so I got it wrong. It's a query client. Okay, perfect. I think I might have imported something by mistake, so let's clean it up. Okay, so this part is ready. Now, in our home file, what we should be able to do is use const and then listings query. Let's not decompose this object just yet, and we will use it as a single object, and we will, if you want to decompose it, there are guides to do that. So this should be a use query. Let's import that. An object argument, an argument object. Let me get rid of this pop-up. Okay, so there are essentially three things that we want to define here. We want to define a query key, and let's do listings and app ID. Okay, so this is the bit. The query key is something that each query should have its own unique identifier. And so in essence, this has more deep meaning than this, but essentially if the app ID changes, this query is going to run again. This is the short version of it. Now, we want to write a query function now, and this is going to be an async function. Okay. Now, before we write this function. Let me just set the third and last thing that we need, which is the stale time, and let's set this to 1 second. I don't think that this is crucial and we could leave it out, but this is also helpful. For example, when the listings change, but the app ID doesn't, and that happens precisely when we create either a new listing or we buy something from a listing, and therefore we have to update the value. So this is not a perfect solution. Ideally, you would want to invalidate this query in the place where you are doing a mutation. These are advanced concepts that we will not explore, and setting up a stale time is fine. Okay, now we have to write the function that reads all the listings from a contract, and we will do this by first box names, by first listing all the boxes in the application. Get application boxes. This is what we want to do, and this takes the app ID. Okay. Oh, we are missing an await. Oh, and the other obvious advantage of using tanstack query is that we can use the async await paradigm instead of relying on callbacks, which it's much nicer. Okay, so now we have all the boxes, and we want to actually read the content of these boxes. So I think let's do a const box contents, and now for each box name, for each name, oh, hold on, box, this is as a, yeah, this is as a field called boxes, and this would be a list of box names essentially, and for each of these we want to map to so we have another async function that takes in a box name and ideally spits out the content that we want. So this is return, no, let's do things properly, box. So we are trying to get the content of the box. Hold on, can we get away with just doing return algorand client algo and get application box by name? Yeah, and again app ID and box name, and then do. So this will return, but this will return, I think, just bytes, just the bytes content of that box, and we want to do some decoding. Box name, volume properties. All right, let me check my notes in just a second. Yeah, I got it wrong. So this is just a box. Will it let me do a refactor? Oh yeah, box. And this is box.name. Perfect. Oh, and also what we want to do is we want to wrap all of, because this is going to return a promise, right? For, oh, we're missing an await. This is going to return a promise, a list of promises. We want to resolve all of them. So we will do this by saying an await promise.all to all these promises. And so yeah, the type hinting tells us that we are going to get a list of boxes, which is what we want. Oh, I'm not in the project for the front end. Lint fix. Okay. So is this fine? Well, I think that we don't want to return just the bytes content of the box. So let's do a single box content and let's assign. My PC is slowing down. And let's assign this to that. So in order for us to do some decoding, we should return, well, at the very least, we should return the information about the sale. So we have said multiple times that this is the seller, which is going to be a string. And then the asset ID and the nonce. Just remove this. We'll fix it later. And now we will also want to return how many assets are still left to be sold and at which price. So let's say just amount and unitary price. Okay. So the information about the key is in the box name. So the box name, it's a concatenation of the address followed by the asset ID and the nonce. So we should be able actually to use encode address. Yeah. And this is from box. This is from box name slice from 0 to 32, which is the length of one address. We need to import this, and we are importing this from the Algo SDK. So this is something that will take the bytes and convert them to a human readable format. For encoding a number, we have encode u in 64. That's it. And we want to do box name slice right after the address. So it's 32 plus 8. That's 40. And I think we want to do big int. No, that's not it. Hold on. Let me check my notes. Hold on. Where did we import this from? Yeah. Oh, I got it backwards because this is the code. Okay. And import from Algo SDK. Yeah. So now this is working. Essentially the same thing. So 40 to 48. Begin. Now the amount, this we have to read from the content. So we have to read from box content. Box content value, perhaps, I think. Yeah. Slice 0 to 8. Begin. And last, the code unit box content value slice 8 to 16. Oh, and big int. We want a big int out of it. That looks good to me, honestly. But we did not use box content. Ah, yeah. So we want to. I think we can just avoid this temporary variable altogether and just return this. So this will be a an array of this kind of object, possibly an empty array. We will handle the cases where this query fails and all of that. Just a word of caution, I'm committing capital sin by doing this because we don't know ahead of time how many boxes an application could have. And in our case, this is going to be a pretty small number. Just be aware that this number is the number of promises that you are going to try and resolve all at the same time with this code is without bounds. So as the number of listings grows, this code becomes very problematic quickly. So just a word of caution. It will not cause any problem right now. Okay, at this point, I think we want to start and display this information that we got through the query. And for now, let's not worry too much about where this content is. Let's just throw it in there and we'll make adjustments later. But it's important that we at least code and I show you how to display information from that list. Where would be a good place to put it? What is this? This is the app ID. This is the unitary price. I think let's create another section, section for the app, and put it here. So I think we want a label. Listings. And now we want to actually show the list. And let me just check my notes. Ah, yeah, okay. So I think that every list starts with UL. I apologize, I'm not I'm not a front-end person. Let's just do our best. And then yeah, we wanna say that, so for the listings query, let's say that if there is data there, we wanna yeah, we want to display a single in each element from that list. And so this would be a listing, and this should return a list element. Okay, it's kind of a the note that I have, it's kind of a mouthful, so let me just copy it over and we'll break it down. Okay. Okay, so essentially what we just write? We said, okay, so if there's data as a result of that query, then each element, which will be a single listing, will be a string, this string right here, where we display not every information, but just what is essential for this interface. And so we display the asset ID, the amount that's left for the sale, and we will assume that the we will just copy manually the seller address for the moment, and we will assume that the nonce is 0. And we will assume that for the nonce is 0 for the reason that each new sale we create a new asset, so we never get past nonce equal to 0. Last, the price. And now, why do we have to define a key? This is something that React requires, that each element, in order to do the minimal amount of updates, they want a key. They will give you a warning if you don't. I'm not sure that it really matters in this case because we refresh the list from scratch each time, but I'm not sure about it. But I know that it's better if we have a key there. Now I'm thinking, do we have any errors? Because I have well, let's just assume that this code kind of works, and let's go to the next recording where we removed the other stuff that we don't need for this contract, and we build the minimal amount of stuff just to run the UI and start doing some debugging if we need to. So I'll see you in the next recording. Welcome back to the next recording. In this recording, we are going to implement the minimal functionality to create a new digital marketplace contract that we can interact with, and some code to sell assets. So we can create listings and also be able to verify if they are showing up correctly. So I think in order for us to do that, let's start perhaps with the code that we already have that works, which is the create. That should be somewhere around here. Oh, it's here. Let's see. So we have put the listings for this. So I think let's move this portion of the code and let's paste it someplace after the create section. What's this? Asset ID, units left. I think it can go in place of this code because this is just showing the single listing that we had before, but now we have multiple listings. And what am I missing? Hold on. So a divider. Let's have a divider here too. So this code is conditional with the app ID being different than 0. So I think that's what I want to do here too. So I think I will always want the dividers and the listing. So let's wrap this code in curly brackets and normal parentheses and app ID different than 0 and this code. That should work. Okay. Right. I have to cd into the front end folder. Awesome. Okay. So now we have a conditional display of the listings whenever the app ID is different than 0. Oh, actually, that is that brings us to another topic. We want to also have a condition on the displaying on the listings. And let me check my notes. That condition is, yeah, that condition is that this did not error out. So let's do listings query not is error and the result. Okay, so what this additional condition will do is that I think that tanstack query works such that data is still set to the latest successful run of the query. However, if the latest run was not successful, data should still be set to the latest successful, but the latest, like in the latest, if that results in an error, we have to check, and we don't want to read the data if the latest results in an error. So this is a condition that allows us to only display the data if the latest query was a success. And okay, so back on track. We wanna do something about the creation. And for that, I think we don't need a unitary price because we're going to have that in a cell, um, form. So I'm checking my notes. And yeah, I think this looks good. We have the app ID and a form with set app ID. Yeah, this should be good. Okay, so now we have to change the method create because this still takes a unitary price and a quantity. Asset being sold, we want to separate this out into more functions. And let's go to methods. And I think we don't need the unitary price and the quantity as not the asset being sold. Yeah. So we are going to create the asset to be sold in the sell method. So this can be removed. Okay, if we take a look at our contract, I just want to show you something. So we didn't create any specific method called create with create. So this contract actually can be created with the default creator. And the way that you call that from a client is you call create bear. Now, I don't know if we already talked about bear method, but it is essentially a way to call a contract that it's not exactly a method call. Maybe we can get into the details of the difference between a bear call and a method call after this session if anyone has questions on it. But the short version is that a bear application call encodes 0 return values and 0 arguments for that application call, and it behaves differently than a method call. So we don't need any argument or return value in the creation, and we're using the default constructor for a contract. So we are fine with creating it with a bear application call. So okay, we should modify this. We should fund only the minimum balance to hold algos. And if we take a look at the contract, we are not going to have just one asset in this contract because it allows for multiple sales. And this contract is going to opt in every asset that it will be a custodian for. And anytime that you call this allow asset method, we are offering, we have to fund the MBA, the minimum balance requirement increase with a payment transaction. So we don't have to worry about also funding for an asset because we're going to fund each time that we allow a new asset. I don't think we need the extra fees because we're not doing any inner transaction at this moment. And opt into asset transfer, we don't need this because we're going to do this in the sell method. This is still good. We want to update the, oh yeah, we want to update the application ID in the interface. Now, the reason that I was getting confused is that this should be a send, not a transaction. And we can discard the return value because we don't care about it. Just checking if that's what I did. Yeah. Perfect. So we are not passing this payment in a method. We are just sending a payment to the contract, and that's it. Okay. So this would change this call right here, and we have to discard everything else. And so we have Algorand DM client, digital marketplace client, active address, and set app ID. Perfect. Yeah, this should be good. And I think we want to have a sell method. So let's do that. And export function sell. And I think at the very minimum, we want an Algorand client. And a digital marketplace client. So let me just check my notes. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the flow is going to be that we want to create a new asset, and then we want the contract to opt into that asset, and then we want to call the deposit method. So first step would be to create the asset. So set create result. This is equal to await Algorand send asset create, and what params does this take? So this takes an asset create params. So at the very least it will be total, and we want to also use the decimals. Total, I think let's do 10 units, but we're going to set the decimals to 3, so this has to become 10,000 decimals. This can be 3. Oh, I think this one's a big int. Ah, yeah, that's right. Does this fix it? Oh, the sender. Perfect. Okay, so we need to pass that as an argument to this function. It's a string. Perfect. Okay, so what is this error? Oh, we're missing an async export function. All right, my bad. We're returning a function, an asynchronous function. Okay, perfect. Okay, that looks better. And I said that now we want the contract to opt in that asset. So again, just checking my notes. Yes. Okay, perfect. So I happen to know that we will want to have the application address ready to go. So let's do that. And this is the DM client dot app client dot get reference get app reference. There you go. And we want let's first write our goal, which is the DM client, and allow asset, and take a look at what. So allow asset wants an MBR pay and the asset. So the asset is the asset create result confirmation and asset index. Type. All right, because in principle this is returning a transaction that may have the new asset index in their set in their fields, but the type system doesn't necessarily know that because this is just a generic transaction and it's not inferring correctly that we are using, it's not just any transaction, but it's an asset create transaction. So I think in order to make the type checker happy, let's do a if asset create result confirmation and asset index. If this is not set, then we should throw an error. And we're missing an MBR pay transaction. So I think let's build the transaction MBR pay, and this is equal to a transaction and a payment, and this payment is from the sender to the app address, and the amount is algo kit algos, and it's 0.1. And what is this? Okay. So I think this should be good. Let me check my notes. Yeah. I almost forgot that we want to also pass an extra fee because the application call is going to issue an inner transaction to opt in that asset. It will be this transaction here. Okay, so now we have allowed the asset into the contract, and we should deposit it. Yes. So looking back at the contract, we have two methods: first deposit and deposit. Now, we know that by setting up the UI this way, we are only going to ever make one single deposit. because for each time that we call the sell method, actually we are creating a new asset, right? So any deposit that we make, we only need one to deposit all the assets that we want to sell. However, just because we want to be able to at least, check that these methods work, we are going to split the deposit into two calls. The first will be a call to first deposit method, and the second call will be to deposit method. This is not something that you would do in production. In production, you would want to check on chain if for that asset and all the sell parameters, the seller already has a sale open, and you would want to only have the user sign one single method. But in this case, again, since the flow of this demonstration is that we do everything from scratch each time, we're going to split it every time. So we're going to have two calls actually. And let's say that we want first to have a call to first deposit. And in this case, the methods are a pay. So this should be an MBR pay, an asset transfer, the actual deposit, and I think the nonce, perfect. The nonce is always going to be 0, and the unitary price. Okay, perfect. So, oh, yeah. So at the very least, we know from this function definition that we want to get the unitary price as an argument. Right. And then I think I want to change the name of this transaction here because this is an MBR pay for the MBR pay or allow asset. This is going to be a different one, and this is going to be a MBR pay first deposit. And we have to build that. So const MBR pay first deposit. This is equal to a transaction. That's a payment. That's going from the sender to the application address, and the amount is going to be 0.1, the amount necessary to opt into an asset. And I think at some point, no, we don't need extra fees because we're not doing any inner transaction. And we also need to build the transaction for the actual deposit. So this transfer will be a asset transfer first deposit. Let's build that too. First deposit. This is an outgoing transaction, and it's an asset transfer. Sender for receiver, which is the app address. And I like to set the asset ID as one of the first thing because that makes it more clear, quicker that that's an asset, that is a transaction involving an asset. So, oh yeah. So this is what we want. This is the asset that we just created. Number begin is not assignable to this. I think let's just convert this to a begin. Okay, so this is missing the amount at the very least. And how much do we want to sell? I think that should be an argument. Yeah, let's do that. So the amount, let's begin, and yeah, that's the amount that we. But hold on. So how are we going to split this first deposit into multiple transactions? I think since we cannot deposit an amount equal to 0, because this is one of the conditions that we have in the method, for first deposit and for deposit, we agree that it doesn't make sense to deposit a 0 amount. So I think let's deposit 1. Let's just deposit 1 in the first deposit. Now this has to be an amount. And this is going to be the first deposit, and then we are going to call just deposit method with the amount. Let's set it. It's going to be amount minus 1. Yeah, this is not a place for the amount. We want to set this to const asset transfer deposit, and this is equal to transaction and asset transfer. Now we want the amount here to be set to the wholesale minus 1 because we deposited 1 in the first deposit. And we don't need an MBR pay because the box is already paid for, but we still need, hold on, no, this is for this. So we want an exfer, so an exfer deposit, nonce equal to 0. And I think this could be it because, yeah, the price is already set and the box is already paid for. So what's missing from here is the asset ID, which is just this line. Sender and receiver to the app address. Okay, I think that looks good. Yeah, that should work. I think we wanna try and run this code at this point. I would like to see how the UI behaves with this code. So I think let me just pause the recording for a second and set up a view so that we can see the application being ran, and I'll start the recording back. Okay, let me try and switch to the application view. There we go. Okay, so let's see. I'm just going to log out and log in again to confirm that we have everything set up properly. This is not working. Let me pause for a second and figure it out, and I'll catch up with you in a second. And we're back. Sorry about that. I realized that my Docker froze up. That can happen when your PC goes to suspension mode, and it freezes up, like things like that are virtualized, like Docker. So I restarted everything, and now we should be good to go. So let's try that one more time. So cd into the projects for the front end, and npm run dev. Oh, nice. npm run dev will link the projects for you before starting the browser environment. Let me load up the application, switch to the view. Okay, again, let's try that one more time. Localnet. Okay, good. We are logged in. And I also reset like the local net just out of caution. So we have a create marketplace correctly here because the app ID is 0, but I don't like this divider. So let's modify that. So this is the create, and these are the listings. Oh yeah, this is the divider that we don't want. Cool. So we have the form for the app ID, and then we have the button. So this should have updated live the interface. Let's switch to that, and we don't have the divider anymore. Very good. So let's try and create the marketplace. Okay, so we have an app ID of 1001. We will take a note of this because for the next iteration, let's say that we refresh this page, we want to keep note of this ID. It might be different on your local net depending on how long have you reset, how long since you have reset your local net. Okay, so we don't see the actual fields for the cell function, so let's do that. I think we want to, yeah, this looks like the old cell form. So, oh no, this is the old by form. We need to make our own cell form. And I think for that, let's create a divider. And in here, we're going to write the code. I'm just going to check my notes and see what we need. Right, okay. So we need two fields. Hold on, am I showing you the code? Oh, I'm not. Okay, here we are. So I'm just right under the create form, and I'm putting a divider here and here between the listings and the create. And we want to go up to the various states of this component, and we want to have two new states. One is called amount to sell, and set amount to sell. This is a state begin that defaults to 0. Well, not defaults, but the initial state is 0. And then we want to have a selling price. Set selling price. We want to have forms for this. So let me just copy what we have here. And this is going to be amount to sell, type number, That's good. And this is going to be amount to sell, and we want to set amount to sell. What's that? Oh, right. Big int is not assignable to type. Okay, how can we convert to string? Probably that works. Yeah. And this is a number, right? So I think we want this to be a big int or a zero big int. Let's check if the UI is updating. Yeah, right. We want this is the amount to sell. Okay, so let's do the same for the what was that? The selling price, of course. And I think we just want to copy this. And this is selling price. Selling price and set selling price. No, set selling price. Okay, and I think we want to have this conditionally show up if we are actually, if we have an application ID set to something, right? So I think let's wrap this around curly brackets and then normal parentheses, and this is app ID different than 0 and this code. Must have one parent element. I don't understand why this is not working. I think I'm gonna pause the recording and figure out this error. Yeah, sorry, that's my bad. I should have wrapped this whole form in a div, and then I can wrap this around JavaScript code. So we should see at this point that the interface is conditionally showing up or not. So if we set this, okay, we get the form to sell. And I think we want to set it to the old application ID that we had and try to sell something at this point. But we're missing the button. So let's do that. This is a method call. Perfect. This is sell methods sell. Yep. Oh, we have to change the arguments. The text is create new listing. Okay, so what are the arguments? Algorithm client, the digital marketplace client, sender, amount, unitary price. Algorithm client, sender, amount. So the amount is amount to sell, and the unitary price is the selling price. Active address. Oh, okay, yeah. So then let's put another condition here. Active address. Okay, so if we have an app and an address, perfect. Okay, this should have updated. Let's go to the interface, to the web UI, and oh, I think, well, let's keep it like this for the moment. And so amount to sell, I think that we set the total to 10 units, right? Let me check. So yeah, the new asset is going to have 10 units, so we cannot exceed that. And we also should not go below 2 because we split the deposit methods into 2 methods, and each of them must be at least 1. So the minimum that we can try to sell is 2 units. Well, not 2 units, but 2 of the lowest denomination that we can. So I think let's try to sell 3.1 units and at the selling price of 2 algos. So 2 million micro algos, create new listing. I think this ended up as an error. Yeah, this is failing. Oh, I see. Yeah. I had this error also when writing the first time the code. So I can see from this stack trace that we failed an equality check against 28,100. So now I happen to know that this number is exactly, let's go to the code. This number is exactly the, hold on, the for sale box MBR. So I know that the error is that in this, somewhere in the first deposit when we are creating the box, where is it? Here. Okay. So in this first deposit, we are passing 0.1 algos, and I mistakenly thought that we were passing something to opt in an asset, but that's not right. In this, we already opted into the asset, and this should be the MBR increase for the box. So I think let's copy this formula over, and this will be an amount in microalgos. And I think let's convert them to big int. I don't think that for this for numbers this small it makes actually a difference. Oh, we cannot. Okay. Yeah, this should work now. Update the UI, go back to here and reset the page, type in the ID of the app, and we said the number, not a number, can it be converted to begint? It's not an integer. Ah, this is the amount to sell. I see. I think. Oh, I never switched. I'm sorry. I never switched to the UI view. I just got an error here saying that there is a failed conversion to begin. And by clicking on the stack trace, I can tell that it's the line that converts the amount to sell field to a begin. So I think let's go to the code this time. And we wanna change these two lines essentially. Let me check my notes and see how I did it. Okay. I think it's sufficient to wrap this OR within the begin conversion. Okay. Switch to the app view. And let's keep the console open, but reset the page. 1001 amount to sell. We said 3.1 units at a selling price of 2 algos. So 2 million micro algos, create new listing. Okay, it seems to have successfully ran. I think let's update this page and check if the listings are showing up. Okay, so yes, they are. Yeah, so we can see although it's strange that it didn't catch this update automatically, because I think that we set the stale time of this query to 1 second, so at the very most every second it should try to catch new data. But yeah, here we are. So we can see that the asset ID is 1007, and we can see that the deposited amount is what we said, and the price is 2 algos. So yeah, so this confirms that we wrote the query function for the listings correctly, and we can create new listings. And so I think that we are going to work on the buy form in the next recording, and I think that will be the last recording, but let's see once we get there. I'll see you in the next recording.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that the next recording is in fact the last recording, and that since we are nearing the end of the session, I'm just going to play the next recording for everyone. And we've been getting some pretty good questions, and if you have some more, let's just paste them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them.
Okay, welcome back. In this recording, we're going to write the buy method. So let's review where we're at. I think up to listings, everything should be fine. Oh, let's review if we set the stale time. Oh, we did. Okay. Well, I don't completely understand why this didn't kick in and update the listings on its own, and we had to refresh the page. That should happen on its own. If you want to get more into the details of how tanstack query works, I know that, like for example, listing query, it has something like invalidate or refetch. Yeah, so you can like give it commands and you can invalidate the data and trigger another refresh of the data. We're not going to get into that, but just know that it should be possible to manually re-trigger catching new data in methods like selling or buying, because that's what's going to change the content of that data on chain. But anyway, we don't need the address for this. That's good. And this is the buy form. And we're gonna want more things than this. So this is a text. Oh no, this is an input box, but it's in read-only mode. And oh yeah, this is pulling from the price of the sale. This is going to have to be a normal input box because we have multiple sales now. So active address and app ID, but this doesn't make sense anymore. Units left is going to be up to the user to select which listing they want to buy from, and therefore I think we don't need the asset ID. Set unitary price. I think we want selling price, and maybe so then maybe this can be buying price. Buying price. Yeah, also modify the set attribute. Quantity, let's say buying quantity. Yep. Units left. Okay, this was used differently. I think we don't need this anymore because buying quantity. So let's review. We need at least the key, the minimum amount of fields that we need to determine what sale we are buying from is the seller. So, oh, we have a seller actually, but I think it's used differently in this context, but let's just recycle that state. So we have a seller, set seller. The nonce, we are always going to have that to 0. This string I think can be empty string. So the seller and the asset ID at the very least, right? So buying asset ID and set buying asset ID. This is equal to a use state big int 0n. So the seller, the nonce equal to 0, and the buying asset, they uniquely determine a sale, and we want to say how much of that we want to buy and at what price. Units left, it's not something that we need anymore. I'm going to check my notes quickly if I'm perhaps seller address on this my buying nonce. Buying price by quantity. Yeah, no, we should be good to go. Okay, so let's review listings. We're good up to that. And so now we want, this is price per unit. So let's approach the problem this way. Let's copy a label plus a form. And so this is going to be the seller address. Maybe let's also change this to be seller address. Where were we? Okay, yeah, seller address. The value is the seller address. We don't need the toString method because this is already a string. Set seller address, and that's just the content of the field. Okay. Then the nonce is always going to be 0, and the asset ID. So asset to buy. And this is the buying asset ID. toString set buying asset ID. This can stay the same because it's a big int. And then we have the buying quantity and the buying price. Okay. Amount, I think it's clear from the context that this is the buy form. So this is the buying quantity. Set buying quantity. And this is the price. The buying price technically, but I don't think that we need to show that on the UI. Set buying price. Perfect. Desired quantity, all of this can be eliminated. Okay, so now we have to change the buy method. In this button, let's see, let's review what this button is doing. Buying quantity, yes. For buying quantity units, for buying price times buying quantity. Oh, I see. So this is displaying the, yeah, this should be correct. Yeah. Well, let's just use it and then review if this needs some fixing. I think I'm going to comment out this code. And so let's first check what the buy method is doing. Comment this temporarily. Okay. Set units left, we're not going to need this. And the sender, okay, the app address, we'll see if we need this actually. The quantity in the unitary price, okay, let's first review. So the buy method needs to an owner, an asset, and a nonce at the very least. So the owner, asset, and a nonce. Now the nonce, we said it's always going to be 0, so might as well put that here. And the owner and the asset. The sender, I think the sender should be called the buyer, but anyway, let's import this. This should be called buyer. The asset, that's important. So the asset, it's a big int. What else do we need? The buy, the pay transaction, and the quantity. Okay. So the quantity and the unitary price should be enough to determine. I'm not sure why we need the app address. Transactions, payment, receiver, the app address. I don't think that, I think we should change that, right? Because the payment is supposed to go directly to the owner of the sale. Yes, exactly. So in the pay transaction, the profit in algos is going directly to the owner of the sale. So I don't think that we need to have the app address, and the receiver should be the owner. Now, we are importing the quantity and the unitary price. I think we want to correct this to be quantity and unitary price. This has to be scaled back by the amount of asset decimals, which is going to be 3 in our case. So this is that begin to number. This, if I'm not mistaken, this should be 1 times 10 to the 30, so this should be 1,000. And okay, sure. Micro algos, yeah, that sounds right to me. Extra fee, yes, for the inner asset transfer. Yeah. And then the buyer transaction. All right, because this is the buy pay. Well, we can actually rename this one to be buy pay. And the quantity is this. Okay, I think this should work. State, get asset information. Oh, this is done because the sets unit left. We don't need this anymore because we are handling the state with a tanstack query. Let me check my notes if I'm forgetting perhaps to do something. I don't think so. Okay. Now we want to correct the call to this method, and so we know that we don't need the application and the set units. Buying quantity, buy price, that's fine. Quantity and price, but we need the owner, the asset, and the buyer. So this is the buyer, and the seller address is the owner. Okay, and we don't have a nonce, but we have a buying asset ID. No, hold on. Owner, the asset, and the buyer. Owner, asset, and buyer. Quantity and price. Quantity and price. Perfect. I think this should work. Let's test that hypothesis. Go to the code application view. Keep this console open for the moment. And we want to go to the app ID. Also, you see, it does update everything if we change the app ID, but it doesn't if we sell or buy something. So this seller address we're going to copy this from this page. That doesn't look right. This is strange. I'm going to review like what's on how the form is defined. I'll pause the recording. I got the error. I just needed to define this type of the input as a text and not as a number. So we should be good to go. Let's switch to the application view, and yeah, we can just paste the address of the seller. Cool. Asset to buy. There's only one listing at the moment, so the asset ID, the amount. I think let's buy half of a unit, and the price is 2 million micro algos. Uh, that doesn't look right. Hold on. For a for 100 algos. Let's review what we have in the code. So this is the buying price times the buying quantity. Does this need to be wrapped in a big integer? I don't think so. Yeah. And oh, so this is 10 times 10 to the 6. Perhaps this is where the error is coming from. By buying quantity. So by buying quantity, let me try and create a view where we can see both the code and the application at the same time, because going back and forth is going to be a bit painful now that we have to do some debugging. Okay, let's see if this works. Yeah, I think you should be able to see both the code and the application at this moment. So let me try and program like this. So we have in this button the buying quantity, and this is correct. Like if I change the quantity, it changes in the button for 100 algos. Now we want to have
All right. Yeah, today was a pretty interesting and long session. So for today, we are going to make a break, and tomorrow we are going to resume in this part. That is correct, Giorgio?
Yes, absolutely. My apologies for the length of the recorded material, but I think the information that we are learning is very useful. And I think, yeah, let's resume tomorrow, first thing,
Mhm.
before we take a look at the auction. And, you know, we wanted to stop the session on time and a couple of minutes early so that we can ask questions about today's material. And I think we've seen some very insightful questions today. I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy that uh, the content is, you know, being well received. So, you know, uh, what do you think, Camilo, of today's
Of
session?
course, I have some comments because it was a really incredible session. Really learned a lot, enjoy the way that you present the content. And today we learn how to modify our user interface. So that means that our digital marketplace now support the functionalities that we add to our smart contract in session one. And as always mentioned, the purpose of this bootcamp is to a project to show you the latest in developer tooling. And we want this content to serve as a base to build your own projects. And I want to thank all the DevRel team and especially you, Giorgio, for preparing the content for this bootcamp. I know that is a big effort, but I think that the community really appreciated this kind of content. The sad part is that we only have one session left, but the positive part is that we have learned a lot. So, Giorgio, what we can expect to learn tomorrow?
Okay, so again, tomorrow we will finish today's recording, and by tomorrow, so I have already pasted the links in the chat. Keep an eye on that because by tomorrow, but it may be also by today, I will publish the code that we haven't seen yet. And tomorrow we will take a look at how to modify this contract and a bit of the front end to make it possible for people to place bids. So right now, if a user comes to this application, they can only buy the price, only buy the asset at the specified price by the user. And it will be possible for people to place bids and for the seller to accept them. So this is what we're going to work on today and tomorrow, sorry.
Awesome. And I totally agree with Harry. There are too many things that we need to still to process, but the best way to do it is to try to replicate the full bootcamp, try to add your own functionalities, and that way you realize what are the missing parts that you need to pay more attention. Also, we want to improve, and that's why in the next few days we will send you a follow-up email with the recordings and the surveys so you can give your feedback. We want to improve, we want to iterate these bootcamps and the way that we present content to you. So yeah, please help us to answer the survey. And also the next week we will have the TypeScript intermediate bootcamp. So if you love Python but also TypeScript, feel free to join us in the next week bootcamp. We are on time, Giorgio. One last comment, something that you want to share with us before we end today's session?
I think I'm good. I'm excited for tomorrow's session.
Okay, so thank you all for joining us and looking forward to seeing you in tomorrow's session. Thank you so much.